Welcome to the underground. Today is January 1st, 2026. Can y'all believe it? Wow. Well, this is our sixth installment in the series Ancient Kemet and Other African Contributions to Astrology. If you're new here, welcome to the EarthtoneS channel. I am your host, Calcala Moon. Please consider subscribing, hit that like button, and share the video. We're going through an initiation of sorts as a collective. It is, in my opinion, that we're going through a transformation. The signs in the air may be indicative to you that there is change in the air. But we are learning about the path of the sun in the underworld during winter 2025-26. So let's get into part 6. And as we make this transition and I share my screen, in the last video, we were looking at the resurrection of a pep or a pep, as may be the pronunciation, but this is the serpent in the sky, also known as Apophis, as well as the Hydra, and also Draco. And so its resurrection involved its shedding its skin. So we know that serpents shed their skin in preparation for a new journey, new chapter in life. And this was important because we're going through the constellation of Ophiuchus, approaching the constellation of Sagittarius, which is the resurrection constellation and the spiritual sign ruled by Jupiter. And so, as I get my bearings here, there we go. This is important because we're wrestling with the serpent, Apophis, or Apep. However, it has left us here in the underworld and has resurrected along with Asar and Aset, also known as Osiris and Isis. So they've completed their resurrection, and now we're working with the sun. So we saw in the last installation the two lions, but we just got a brief introduction to the lion here on the left in the top relief, getting a buzz from the lotus flower, the white lotus. It's important that we mention that it is the white lotus that he's getting a whiff of. And so we're going to go deeper in introducing the two lions, Akar lions or Acker lions, as Seth being yesterday and Wow being tomorrow. And I pronounce Wow because D and T are interchangeable in Sanskrit. Between them is the sun on the horizon. And so the sun is on the eastern horizon at this point in the sign of Sagittarius, literally, but from the Earth's perspective, it has already moved on into Capricorn. Beside tomorrow or Dwao is the Bennu bird. The Bennu bird was the inspiration behind the Phoenix rising in Scorpio. And the Bennu bird is getting a whiff of the white lotus that is blossoming and is most fragrant in the morning. It closes at night and opens in the morning. It is atop the Bin stone. And we saw in the previous installment, or the one before that, our moon rising on the Bin stone from the waters of noon. So there's a lot of symbolism here in the resurrection of the sun. The bottom two reliefs shows us the potential on the left of the sun. And in the sun, we see the potential of Heru, looking like a little chickadee here, a little chickadee hawk. Beside Heru is the potential for Wajet. And Wajet is also resurrected because wherever you find Osiris or Wazir is his resurrected name, where we get the word Sir, you're going to find Wajet protecting the Neset Biti, the pharaoh, and his co-regent, Aset. In the sky, she's Sapdet, the star Sirius. And so under this potential rising sun, we see this rope. What does that represent? This rope represents eternal life, eternity. So for eternity, we are demanding or commanding the sun to rise without fail. Beside that relief, we have yesterday and tomorrow with the rising sun, with the Ankh, giving us fertility, giving us that eternal life to assure us that every morning the sun will rise. And so we look at yesterday, smelling the sweet success of yesterday, the sweet memories of yesterday, which is what we like to think Seth is sniffing in this relief, and the potential for tomorrow. We also look at it as the past and future. How will we make that happen? As we relieve ourselves of the traumas of yesterday and the old relationships that need to fall off so that we can elevate to a higher level of consciousness and weave something new and make space for new relationships, new projects. We have the support of the creator, Ptah, and Sekhmet. Ptah is the creator of energy. You can associate him with the planet Uranus. Now, what differentiates him from Khonsu, who we met in the first or second video? In the first video, his representation is of the ram's head. He fashioned man on the potter's wheel out of clay. Ptah, who rules Upper Kemet in the land of Memphis during a different segment of time, is responsible for the energies necessary to come together to create that divine spark for life. Sekhmet, his co-regent, is the fierce feminine energy of fire. Sekhmet is the destroyer. Now, they both have interchanging type energies because just as Ptah can create, that electric energy can also destroy. And just as Sekhmet, with her fiery energy, can destroy, she can also use her fire to create. She can create the temperatures necessary to create form. But in her mythology, the absolute creator, the creator God, he who has no name, was dissatisfied and disappointed in man and the earth, and therefore sent in Sekhmet to destroy the population. And she got a little overzealous and carried away and was on a bloodthirsty spree so much that the creator God wanted to subdue her in her fiery destruction, and therefore created a concoction of beer dyed red to imitate or give the illusion, Neptune, of blood. And as she drank this beer, she became lethargic and sleepy, and this allowed the earth to return back to a sense of calm and reduce the amount of chaos as per her destruction. And so they're here to support us in our journey. And so we have this potential to weave a new song in our emergence this year, 2026, because we have Saturn and Neptune coming together in February, and it's going to really be a big deal. A lot of astrologers are talking about it, but this is that to be or not to be that was was etched in my mind like a song that's on repeat in your head. But we have that illusory energy along with that structural rigid energy of Saturn. And they both will come together at 0 degrees Aries in February. And I'm going to do the astrological video, hopefully today, that will give us a more detailed explanation of the energies that we're looking at for the new year. And so we're looking at this 12-tone music system, which shows us this tritone duality of opposing keys that intersect each other to create their shared tritone notes. And this is the 4 musical triads that include the energies of Amun, who rises from the waters of noon on the Bin stone, creating a small pod of land or earth. Then we have Ptah giving us that divine spark of energy and get things moving with the assistance of the fire from Sekhmet. And so these 4 elemental triads give us balance in creating our song. And so we're back to John Coltrane and his circle of fifths. But we're including the Mazzaroth. Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Who's Arcturus? He's the herdsman in the for the Great Bear. Ursa Major and his sons, Ursa Minor. Where did we get these names, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor? Well, actually, they go back to the beginning. Excuse me, where we can attribute those names to who we know as Ramses the First and Ramses the Second. Ursa Ma'at Ra, Sentepin Ra. So we include here the 12 tribes of Judah, in addition to our 12 notes with their half steps and the 12 colors that are associated with the planets. And so here's the rough draft that's online that shows the how John Coltrane did the rough draft for his work. But when we think about the ancient Kemetans, they used a system of base 10, whereas the Mesoamericans used the base 20 Baktun system. And so the Mesoamericans based their cycle on the Venus cycle, 260-day year. And here we're looking at how music is associated with the ancient Kemetan cycle of time using 60 divided by 12, which gives us 5 representing Venus or Aset, the energy of the Great Mother. So we got some interesting pictures here. I went looking for Mozart because I remembered when I was a young girl in school and we were learning Beethoven's Fifth. And so there were rumors floating around, hey, Beethoven, Beethoven was Black. Well, it turns out the rumor had it that Beethoven would learn music and studied in the kitchen often, which led to that rumor. Whether or not it's true, I'm not sure. But given the circumstances, he may been had something in him because he produced such great compositions. The same held true for Mozart. Like, there's a Black Mozart, the Black Mozart. Who is this Black Mozart? Well, when I went looking online, I thought it was with this fella in the upper left-hand corner until my son said, hey, Mom, you can't put that out there. That's not Mozart. Well, I was like, yes, it is. Look at these colors. I was convinced these colors appeared as the colors are in the ancient medieval or Renaissance pictures that I've seen in the past. So I was certain, but I was obviously wrong. And the actual Mozart is on the right, and they used that same image to create this this AI version of Mozart. But who I was referring to was Joseph Boulogne Chevalier de Saint George. And this is from the National Portrait Gallery in London. And he was considered the Black Mozart because he lived along that segment of time. And he was the first Black composer that was accepted among European circles and played the Baroque music and the other compositions that we considered to be classical European music. Same notes applied to the golden ratio. It's all the same. It's all one. Everything reverts back to the one as we learned in the last video. And that includes the notes, the colors, the sounds, all emanate from the one. So when I say that these notes are associated with the planets, you need to go back to the last video and click on the link that I left for you to listen to the actual sounds of the spheres. The music of the spheres are real. So the golden mean, 1.618, is used throughout ancient Kemet to create the monoliths. It was picked up and used in the Renaissance to create a lot of art and cathedrals. What are they? The mosques is what I'm trying to think of. Beautiful mosques have been built using the golden mean, and many of them have been destroyed. Other cathedrals were built on top of them, even to Notre Dame, not necessarily built on top of a mosque, but uses this golden ratio. And did you know Pythagoras studied mathematics, geometry in ancient Kemet? Well, they recognize it as Egypt. However, he studied with Egyptian priests. Nikola Tesla also went over to Egypt, not necessarily to study, but he was fascinated with the pyramids, what ancient Kemetans considered to be Mir, because he was convinced that there was wireless technology on the Giza Plateau or the Giza Black Plateau, if you like. But I'm inclined to agree with Nikola Tesla for the little I know and what is emerging out of science. Edgar Casey says, if you learn music, you'll learn most all there is to know. And therefore, I'm confident in the information that I'm giving to you based on what I've been learning from the age of 7. I have empirical evidence-based knowledge that does not require a list of degrees behind my name. I have formal education, college education. However, I do not need to be validated by some white authority in order to be confident in the information that I am bringing to you. I studied Gnosis in the 90s. And so while a lot of my peers were out there being social, traveling, I was in the books, learning how to overcome my pain and my trauma from my empirical journey through this life. So we are here to create balance as we emerge from our traumas, collectively and individually. And so we look at the frequencies that we need in order to elevate in consciousness. And what we have here is the star tetrahedron, which is the Merkaba for the human soul. It is the scaffolding for the human form, which requires a certain series of frequency or a code, if you will. That's what I was thinking of in my head. But if you look at the image on the upper right, you see a series of numbers to include 440, 432, and 424. The one in the middle, 432, is actually the frequency of love. But if we look at 424, let's look at that first, and we add the numbers, the digits up individually, we come up with 10. And if we break it down to a single digit using numerology, 1 plus 0 is 1. And if we consider the number above 440, 4 plus 0 equals 8. However, 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9. And that gives us a complete form. And this is how form is manifested. And so in the 1950s, the standard of music balance or music frequency was changed from 432 to 440. Why? I'm not sure, but it has something to do with having more control over the population if all music was calibrated to 440 rather than 432. And we need to get back to the 432 because the 432 is what gives us balance and harmonic frequency and truth, unity, Ubuntu. I am because we are. And so if we look to the left, I want to remind you of the movie The Sound of Music. And so in the 1100s, or the 11th century, I should say, 12th century, Europe was in the Dark Ages. And you had this knowledge out here that had been confiscated by the Inquisition. And so while you had the Moors and the Akan people flourishing in the Songhai, Mali, and Ghanaian empires, you have restriction and limitation in Europe. However, knowledge is always going to find its way to those who need it. And therefore, those that were sharing this information had to find a way to encode it and encrypt it so that consciousness could evolve. And so this little jingle that we all have known from our childhood is actually the key to moving consciousness. And so I want to break down this key to you because I learned this 30 years ago in Gnosis, but I'd forgotten it. Excuse me, I'd forgotten it. And I found it. And it took me years to find it. Not that I was making a diligent effort, but I went looking for it here recently when I found this diagram and wanted to explain it. And there's this writer on Medium that does a very good job and therefore triggered my memory. And this is very interesting. And so let's talk about it. All right, where are we? Here we are. Okay, so this is the meaning of solfeggio. Solfeggio is the scale, the musical scale, and this is the musical triad that we've been referring to. And this musical triad is basically the octaves on the musical scale. So, to give you the background, because we're going to sing this thing here, we're going to sing it. Do is for Dominus. Dominus is the house of God. And so we're going to start at the bottom. If you notice, you have the female tetrahedron at the bottom. That's the womb. Okay, that's the waters of noon. And at the top, you have the male tetrahedron. That's the phallus. That's the point of the phallus. That's the bin stone. Our moon coming out of the waters of noon. Okay, so our moon coming out of those fertile waters of the feminine end of the tetrahedron ends and is complete at the top as a moon rises from the bin stone. If you can see that illustration, if you can pick up what I'm laying down. All right, so Do is for Dominos. C was changed to T. And so that's not the order that I wanted. Let's go to Ray. Ray is the Regina Coeli, which is Latin for queen. So Regina means queen in Sanskrit or Latin. Me is for the microcosm. We are the microcosm of the macro. Fa is for Fata, which is Latin for fates. These are the planets. The solar plexus is the chakra that it relates to. And I skipped the first two. Me is for the chi, and me is the sacral chakra. That's your creative force. And Do, where we started at the bottom, of course, is the root chakra. So getting back on track, we were on Soul, which is number 5, which is the sun. Soul, Solaris, the sun, which is, of course, the heart chakra. Then we have La, 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 la. La is for Lactea, which is the milky liquid from the Milky Way. It is representative of the galaxy itself. And this is the throat chakra. This is the expression of vibration. This is the vibration. I was looking for the best way to express that. Now we have C, which was changed to T so that it could be encrypted, or for whatever reason, TEA was replaced for SI was replaced with TI, representative of TEA. Okay. Lastly, we have the final Do. Okay, so we go from 1 to Re, which is the sun to Me, which is a reflection of the sun. Okay. And you have to visualize it. And so this is the evolution of consciousness. This is the encrypted sequence that moves consciousness. All right? Okay. So the root being Greek for domicile, dominus, house of the father. Now, in Grecian times, the houses were dome shaped. So domicile is where was related to the dome. And yeah, I was just checking where Regina is Latin for queen. And it is the womb. I just wanted to make sure before we go into the song that I didn't miss any of it, because this is very important. Me being the microcosmos prescribed by the monks of the Dark Age is small universe or small earth. Okay, so let's get into this. Frank Ontario writes this article here in Medium. He does a part 1 and a part 2, and he does a good job in breaking it down. And let's see if I can. Yeah, here's part 2. And I wanted to note in part 2, after Rogers and Hammerstein popularized it, or it won't let me go any further because I looked at it enough times, they want me to pay. But anyway, let's do this here. If you know the song, sing along. Do, a deer, a female deer. Ray, a drop of golden sun. Me, a name I call myself. Far a long, long way to run. So I need a needle and thread. Far a long, long way to run. Tea I drink with jam and bread. And that brings us back to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It wasn't the best, but you got it. You got the picture. And so isn't that amazing, y'all? Isn't that amazing? And so they encrypted this so that people could still learn the evolution of consciousness while they were being suppressed. If that's not Saturn, I don't know what is. And so our objective should be to bring our frequency back to 432 hertz, bring the standard of music that we're listening to back to the frequency of love, because this is what helps us to resonate with the cosmos. It uh, uh, it also it brings us into alignment with the precession and the Schumann resonance. And we're going to get into that when we talk about the numbers 7 and 8 in the next half. The last portion, part 7, is the last portion of the first half. But the 42 laws of Ma'at, out of which we get the 10 commandments, is basically a repetition of declarations. I have not killed. I have not spoken ill against my neighbor. I speak with sincerity. I consume only my fair share. I take care of the earth. I remain in balance with my emotions. I spread joy. I am forgiven. I am kind. I do good. I give blessings. I am humble. And you'll see a different list basically saying the same thing. But that is the end of this part. And so, did I stop sharing? There we go. Stop sharing. Welcome back. Appreciate you hanging in. Hope you enjoyed that. Again, I will create a astrology video for January 26th. I did not produce a video for December, being that we're doing this series, because I think it is important as a collective that we understand that we need to address some issues as a whole. Although I'm very familiar and have experience with psychology, this is not the place to really get too deep into the collective analysis, no more than it is to do it individually. That's an inside job, as I mentioned earlier. But yet the concepts are there that we need to use the concept of Ma'at to overcome the place we find ourselves in as a society. And that's just my personal opinion. And so I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next one. Peace.